Thank you for yielding to me. I've got a question. I'm intrigued by this notion of this Medigap policy. And first of all, refreshing, I become eligible for TRICARE next year when I reach age 60, and I think for as a reserve military retiree, and I think then when I would be 65, then I go on to Medicare, and then does TRICARE then pay for a supplemental? How does it work for military retirees?
It's TRICARE for Life. That is the program when a military retiree goes, reaches age 65, becomes a Medicare fee-for-service patient. So there's no more TRICARE Prime, TRICARE Extra, or whatever. It is you're a Medicare fee-for-service patient, but you do have a TRICARE wraparound. So really, it's one of the richest programs out there for Medicare.
But of course, most vets aren't eligible for TRICARE.
So, but tell me about how the system that you're advocating here today.
Yes.
And then, Mr. Collar, I'd like you to also reflect on it. So tell me how.
So this is a simple proposal. As I pointed out, about almost half of the vets using the VA are on Medicare. They're 65 and older. They're virtually all covered by Medicare. But the out-of-pocket expenses under Medicare are too much for many of them, and so they continue to get care at the VA even when they have an age-related problem, like they need a bypass surgery, and there's a teaching hospital down the street where they could be getting the care, but they're worried about not so much the inpatient deductible, but the outpatient deductibles and copays. And so if we gave them a Medigap card just for vets, a special red, white, and blue one, to pick up those out-of-pocket expenses, then they would have the choice of going to another type of hospital for that care. If you look at the outcomes measures, particularly for these age-related procedures, with the exception of just a couple of the VA hospitals, other teaching hospitals are producing better survival rates. So we'd get a twofer. We'd get the care for the vet. It's budget neutral because it's all coming out of federal dollars, and they would have a better chance of surviving their procedure.
Mr. Collar.
My two colleagues at the table are much more resident experts on the notion of payer sources and what the structure looks like. I want to come back to the choice issue a while ago, though. There is a demonstration project underway as a structure for those of you that would be familiar with the Captain James Lovell Federal Health Center in Chicago, which is one of the first demonstrations of the ability to combine veterans' health with active military health. And I remember one of the very first conversations that I was part of 2 years ago, and interestingly enough, the leaders of the Lovell Federal Health Care Center were less worried about the veterans being forced to come there and more about the veterans having the choice to go to Advocate Health Care, at the time Provena Health Care, et cetera. So I think there's another opportunity for us to look within the industry and perhaps, and I couldn't say what their results are today, but this was a conversation 2 years ago where federal health care leaders were already focused on this notion of patient choice.
Okay, and I just want to say that I want to preserve the system right now until we fix the VA by whatever means. We right now are keeping our wounded coming back from Afghanistan out of the VA system by virtue that they do the rehabilitation on active duty, unlike those who came home from Vietnam who were stabilized in the military system and then sent on to the VA. And our morale of our wounded is much higher, keeping them on the military system. Mr. McClain? Could you comment on this notion of providing this supplemental, paying for a supplemental Social Security to where there are not the co-payments, whereby veterans 65 or older who meet the income qualifications for care or have service-connected issues would qualify?
I think that it could be part of the solution. Really, you're really talking about funding here. You're talking about appropriations as to what bucket it comes out of. There's been a lot of discussions over the years about Medicare subvention as to whether VA can be reimbursed by Medicare, and the answer so far has been no. So it would take some significant legislation, I think, for that to occur. I do want to make a point. I know that we're short on time, but one of the things that baffles me about some of the waiting lists. Now, I certainly get the fact that if the veteran wants to go to the VA for care, we need to honor that, and as long as he or she understands that this is going to be a little bit of a wait, that's great. but there were so many other means that some of these waiting lists could be taken care of by sending it out to fee-based care, sending it out under a contract, sending it to an affiliate, sending it to a CBOC. I mean, there are a lot of different ways that this could have been handled, and for some reason, which I haven't heard anybody talk about yet, is not sure why those other sources of care were not used.